on ES, and then we'll go look at smaller stuff. All right, so I'm just gonna start here. All right. So when you guys look here, I would just pay attention to some of the stuff. This is the yearly profile on ES continuous contract, right? And you guys see that we are inside the value area of 2024. We tried to build value higher. They built it here, then they failed. They came back recently here. We got rejected. So I would say most likely we're headed longer picture to this 54.10, 53.76. And if you guys look, this is a pretty big LVN here. It's going to be fairly important. Right below that, you have 2024 POC, which is 52.46. I would probably say there's a high chance they're going to come back to it here shortly and get a test. I wouldn't think that this low here is going to hold much at 55, whatever this is, 11 here. I thought it was a little higher than that, but let's say we'll check on them contract. I wouldn't think this low is going to hold. Most likely this one here will offer a bounce, and then that POC would. But if this fails here, guys, there's a high chance you're going all the way back down to the value area low. That means you're just going to traverse everything that you've done in 24. You went here, you tried to build value, no value, come back, then go here, and ultimately, right, they'll have some space to go to all the way 4,700 here if they decide to go that route. That would be the most probable test that they need to do here, and make sure that they find some other time frame participants that believe the value is here. Remember, this is just the perception of value. Like as value on the long term might be the participants think, right? They're the one with the cash, not really me or you. So if their value for a long term hold is at 47 and they're going to hold it till 10,000, that's pretty good for them, right? Maybe they can absorb some of the hits. But also keep in mind that there are rules some of these hedge funds have to run. You know, when they appreciate so much like they did recently in the stock market. Think about this run. They did pretty well on this, 76%. 2,600 points, and just multiply it a little bit and you'll see. So now when you think about all of them here on the opposite side, so far, you know, we are at the low, I think almost 10 something, if I remember, somewhere around 10%. And that's usually where the panic settles in, right? They have some rules and regulations where they have to sell. And most importantly, right? Let's say Sonny's a billionaire and he's like, hey guys, I don't feel safe in this market. Please clean my account. Well, what do you think they have to do for the client? They'll have to clean the account. They'll have to sell, right? So the panic can settle in, right? Depending on how people see the market and what insider information they got. But I think we have a little bit of room to fall down here. And if you guys switch this to, let's say, monthly, I'm just going to switch my profiles. Take a look where we are right now. So initially, if you guys remember, this was our 3-month balance that we had at one point. I would say somewhere around here. They came back to this value area low, which was the value area low that basically offered a bounce or breakout from that 3 months, is this profile here. They came back and basically defended it right here. Now, if we lose this, what do you see happening? Look at the profile. Where do you think the most probable target would be?
54.05.
That's probably there, right? You have the LVN, but I would say probably this area right here is going to be their bounce area, right? If you look at this, right, so you'll have a couple of value area lows stacked. Here you have some value area highs, higher balances in that area as well. So it makes it pretty probable area for a bounce in 5,300 range. And if you're to think about percentages, right? If you tell people that, you know, let's say they're going to get almost 15% discount on a long-term buy, maybe they're intrigued, right? Is there opportunity to go lower, right? 4,600 or so? I'll probably say so, right? But I would expect different time frame participants to jump in on some of the levels that I pointed out, and I have them saved here on the other chart so you guys can see them here in a second. Okay. Okay, on the long picture, and I do use continuous contract for that. So okay, no questions there. We'll go on to the weeklies. So as you guys know, we're coming up like kind of give you guys the heads up. This is looking like more of a short cover rally. I didn't think it was buyers. And then I wrote something in the chat where I illustrated on the chart, that it did not look like other time frame buyers were buying it. Why is that? Why do you guys think that was the case? Why did I believe that? I wrote it in the chat. Let's see who's paying attention.
No access.
Volume wasn't there?
Wow. Yeah, we didn't have buying access. And then remember, when long time frame participants, when people think they're getting a deal, if I was to drop iPhone right now, or not me, Apple drops an iPhone right now for $50, iPhone 16 or whatever the number is right now, how many of you would drop from here and try to go get it on Apple.com? It's okay to say yes.
All of us.
Most, yeah, most of you guys would be like, man, that's a hell of a deal, right? And it's basically like this. If you don't believe me, just go look at March 2020. It hit, they got an opportunity, and boom. I mean, they just bought it up. Then if you look at this, right, you're breaking from almost a month or more balance. You have a sell off, and then you have another sell off, right? But how quickly did they bring it back inside? It took them 3 weeks, guys, to gain back, one of the week's value areas here. It's not like they bounced and then immediate, aggressive V shape to tell you that there was a lot of it there. That wasn't the case. We had almost like a rounded, bottom here. They spent a lot of time beside below the 57.80, right? And then they finally got in, and then they spent a little bit of time distribution, and then they dumped right here, below the sig one that we had charted, and then of course the rest is history, right? They went all the way to the third sig of this, I would say, value area here. And that's where we are right now. We are kind of sitting right here at the third sig of the 3 weeks that we had. Is this the most probable spot for the reward to take short? No, but there's clues that we can take, right, to make sure that we are not on the wrong side tomorrow, right? There's also JPM collar. I believe they're sold 55. They're in 55, 65 puts, and they sold calls, and I think they have like 5,300 puts on the sell side. So I doubt that we're going to trade there tomorrow by the end of the day. But tomorrow is the quarter end, so I would be very cautious for you guys, especially new people. Trade with 1/10 of what you typically trade. If you trade, I don't know, 5 MES, just go to 1 MES and let the market experience the quarter end close, the collar, and everything that's happening here. It would give you more opportunity to see your plays play out instead of you kind of freaking out about every sudden move or bounce. Just give it room to breathe. And you can't give it when you're on the hook for every point making or breaking you $500, right? Most of you can't handle that. You can't handle it emotionally, and you guys can handle it with the account size probably. So don't do that. Size down the next couple of days. Okay.
Also, Shorty, we don't know at what time they will roll, and
Oh, you
tomorrow
don't know.
yeah, it will cause extreme volatility tomorrow if that put leg is in the money, and then they're closing it.
It would, yeah. I mean, it would cause some serious buying too. For a moment, you would probably see a 30 to 40 points candle like we did last time. You will see a spike, and then you don't know what happens next, because until the next color is set up, you won't know the delta, you won't know how it's positioned, right? So like you said, I think it's going to be a pretty volatile Monday, right? But it'll be fun nonetheless. So obviously we are framing down on the weekly, right? We started here, we closed at the bottom. This was your level before. It was 50, what was it, 56, 51. So that's a pretty decent level for us to monitor right now. Here, if you guys look at this, we have this, I would say, probably a poor low here on the daily. Let me go back to it. It looks like it's not, right? I mean, just because of the structure, but that's, in terms of access on a higher time frame and a sell-off, there's a chance they're going to come back here and clean this up. And I wouldn't expect this access to be any problem, right? Compared to the access that we have now at the top, on this day here, this is a big difference, right? So here, if you guys look, all of the 8 periods pretty much in access, and that's a pretty good access there. And then you see the B period is also pretty much access, right? So all of initial balance was basically sell, and then we waited for that C period, and they also sold their E period encroached, but they failed. I think we were short here actually. So now when you think about the day here, it started aggressive in the first initial balance. They continued, they left some single prints here. I would probably pay attention to these single prints right here, because now what you want to pay attention to when you see a market like going in the direction that it's going fast, what is the first sign that you guys want to pay attention to? Like how do you treat it? What's your psychology behind treating this?
So do you want to see where the aggressive participants showed up?
Yeah, I was thinking more on the spectrum of like you want to identify where the key pivot zones are, right? So would you say 44 to 43 is an important zone? Well, just take a look at it, right? So we built value here, then we decided in this period here, F period, that we were disagreeing with that. They confirmed with G, and then what happened to the value? Well, they sent it lower. So now let's say tomorrow, right? We open up and we encroach this and we pop above it. What are they telling you about this value potentially here? Especially, let's say it's in the first period, A and B, that they reject this. Well, if they do something like this, I would not necessarily look for short. I would look, if they can crack this and go from here all the call it 5670. That'd be great, right? That's quick 30 points. That means you're rejecting the bottom value. You're going to explore all of it here. Not to say that they can't go somewhere in the middle of here of the B period, but that's where, Eric was mentioning the aggressive sellers are somewhere there and you have to find them on the footprints, right? And you can certainly do that. Does that make sense? You want to see them change the auction sentiment, right? And we talked about this before. At some point, let's say you gap down and then you close the gap and you make a new high. That's a pretty good sentiment change. Just like here tomorrow, we did have something happen after hours late. If you guys remember, I was targeting 12 and a half towards the end of the day, but they decided to do that shortly after in the end period, which means the settle price, right? And our settle price is somewhere right here. Market. This means this is where the 415 closes, and it tells you a lot about inventory overnight. Okay, so now if you look, we had a small spike base here starting at 56.18, right? Our previous week low that I had is 56.17. So now think about this. What do you want to see from market? How would you want to see this scenario if you want to be somewhat like, hey, there we go.
We open, come back and test the low or the value area low.
Okay. Whatever you want. Anyone else?
Rejected the single prints?
Well, we don't know if they're single prints. We know it's a spike. Are you talking about the bottom or the top?
Oh, yeah. Okay, you're talking about the bottom. I was at the top. Sorry.
Right. So one of them, right? We got to treat the spike like we always do, right? And end period sold off a little bit more, but is there a chance that somebody knows something over the weekend that we're going to probably continue selling off? Maybe, right? To me, it doesn't change how I played the spike. The spike is 56.18. Let's say we go below it. Let's say we open tomorrow somewhere here, right? And then we decide this and we get in aggressively inside. That means we're rejecting the spike. We're most likely going to go to this level. And I would not fight this too much. If they give me something like this, right, where they go below the spike, then they come back in here. This is a pretty good opportunity, guys, for us to make some money on this. And you could potentially play this all the way to the single price, right? So if you play it like this, hopefully your stop loss is not that big.
They're already so far below it.
Oh, I
right
don't know.
now.
I mean, I don't care, right? I'm just giving you scenarios of what can happen at RTH Open right now.
Okay.
PJ Trader, sure. So if they give me this, right, this would be a great opportunity to take this long. Let's say, she's saying that we're below it. By the time tomorrow comes in, maybe they'll be close to it. Let's say they open it. But how should I treat this area right here for tomorrow? Let's say we're below it. What could I do here if you're encroaching it from the bottom? So let's see.
You see auction slowing down, delta
Well,
shifting
okay,
to short.
we're about to go higher. So we're most likely going to bounce all the way here to A period. Let's see. But let's say they come in tonight, they do something like this at RTH. They come in here and you see weakness. This is not a bad short. Your spike from the bottom could be treated like resistance, right? So be careful on this, right? You want them to get inside and give you an opportunity. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go 56.18 for you to get an entry. You have to pay attention to the current auction, right? And see if they give you a level. And if it matches that, maybe you'll pay a little bit more and manage your risk properly, right? I wouldn't miss that bounce over a point or two if they offer this, right? And since they're below already here, they have, ways to climb, I would say, overnight. The recent lows are at 59.75. If you guys look, that was our lows from March 13th. So there's probably a high chance they're going to want to sweep this as well. Sweep here and they give you access. What would that mean?
Buyers.
That I would keep an eye on that as well, right? If they sweep this tomorrow and they offer some, buying opportunities, that would be pretty good. Below that, I have 55.12, and then the big level that I talked about, the zone earlier, you guys remember, is sitting right here, 54.10 to 53.76.75. I would say this is a very, very big LVN that they have, and I would pay attention to it. That's the one that we just saw here. That's this LVN right here. You guys look right here. So that's a big, big zone, guys. I would not mess with any shorts as we approach here. Probably a good spot to kind of cover the shorts and look for opportunities on the long side. At least I would. And don't be late to the party, right? If you don't catch a good entry, sometimes getting in super late is probably more painful than not trading at all. And there's always another day, guys. So don't force yourself that you must trade. If you miss your opportunity, that's okay. There's the next day and you look for the same setup the next day. So please don't force it. Okay. I do have some spy puts like I mentioned to you guys. I have 417, 532 puts. And I would think we are, probably below this right now. Yep, we're 554-ish. Thought we were lower. But I'm thinking that they can potentially go to 532 here if they lose this level. And I have about a month or 3 weeks left to reach there. So, and we'll see how they do here, if I close some or not. But still in them.
Shorty, do you think you could explain to me a little, like, more simply why tomorrow's gonna be so volatile, or what you were saying in the beginning?
I have the same
Yeah,
question.
So you have the JPM collar, and let me see the levels if I can find them. I think I have them somewhere. Okay, so
Yeah.
they're long 55.65 puts. So if you look here, here's SPX, right? So let me explain this. I'm just gonna do coordinate.
Meaning
So
they
what does
bought those puts, right?
Yeah, they bought those puts. So now the price, if price goes below, then what happens to this price put option?
The-
When they go in the money and the delta starts playing in their role, right? And the volatility is there. This can be really, really a lot of money. Then the second, it's a 3-leg So I think they have somewhere, was it 6? 61, 65. All. Sold. Okay. I think the last one was 5,300. Somewhere around here. Or 47.
Do you keep track of these as we get closer to the end of the quarter?
I'll look at them. I want to make sure that I'm not on this day like tomorrow. It can be really, really painful to be on the wrong side of the trade when they unwind. Okay, and these are 4,700 puts,
And those were sold.
of course. Yeah.
So they want somewhere in between the middle line and the bottom line, is kind of what they're saying.
Yep. So now think about where they're making money. If I sold these calls, so they collected the premium, right? These calls are sold, they're probably worthless right now, right? They're probably zero or close to it. So these, I would say there's a high chance that they made bank on this, right?
Yeah.
Agree?
Already.
So now, if they close somewhere inside here, right? Not too far here, right? Because they also sold these puts. As long as they close here, right? And they're nowhere close to this, they're profitable as it gets. Like they're gonna be raking in money on here. So I would say there's a high chance that they can probably drop maybe if they really want to make bank 100 points on SPX, and that would be, and you can use a calculator to figure out their profitability on each one of these and see. But they could potentially make some decent chunk, if we see a nice drop in the morning and then they close it. What do they have to do to these puts when they want to close them?
Sell them to suckers.
How do you? Okay, somebody you have to buy them, right? And these calls, what do they have to do to these calls when they want to close it?
I don't know.
Buy the
They
calls.
gotta buy the code.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to buy to close, right? And these you're just going, sell. And what about these guys?
Well, they want them to expire.
Yeah, you want these to expire, right? They sold them, so as long as we don't approach this and that FTX is settled, they're okay. And there's probably no chance I would say they were going to drop. Between tomorrow, right? You're going to drop 850 points. I mean, that would mean some big shit happened, right? Uh, but nonetheless, I would expect to see some unwinding when the trade actually gets closed. Because think about the gamma exposure that this would have, right? I don't know how many this. Maybe 23, yes, when they do close, and you'll know when they closed in the market. I promise you're gonna feel it.
You mean like a bounce up?
Monday, something we hear of all week.
But let's see. No, tomorrow you're gonna know when they close, and they typically put the same day. They put the new one up. We just don't know when.
What stops people from just doing exactly what GPM does?
You can follow them. It doesn't mean that they're profitable. I don't think, Sunny, if you know, the last two were the best for them. The last JPM color trade would kill them.
Yep. Definitely.
I think they got destroyed. They got destroyed on the last one. This one, they're double dipping, right? They made money on the calls and they're about to be in the money on the puts.
I see.
No, the last two, if I remember, I know the last
Last
one,
three.
I know they got destroyed.
Last
Three, okay.
Yeah.
Destroyed. So, and they use this for hedges, right? This is also for them to hedge their portfolios of their clients. This is not necessarily a profit-making strategy for them. This is a hedge
I
because,
see.
you know, large institutional traders, sometimes, most of them have to be delta neutral, right? And to do that, they have to use options, you know, they have to use different instruments to get there.
I would say also, yeah. I mean, it's like any risk of following anybody. What they do is like, and small people and even big traders are not profitable as well. Sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean that the intention of what you want to do versus what they're doing. When I buy, you know, when I sold Intel, guys, when we were reaching the 28 level, like here somewhere, wherever that was, I was all about selling calls, right? And let's say I was a billionaire and I sold a bunch of calls here. Somebody who doesn't understand options or, you know, why they're used, you know, when you look at this candle here, does this look like a bearish candle right here? Does that look like a bearish candle at all?
No.
Not at all.
Full body.
But I sold them somewhere around here. And I sold a bunch of it. And on the tape, let's say you did that with like 50 millions, people would be like, oh my God, they're buying calls, we're going to the moon. They buy the calls, but it's actually me selling the calls and protecting my calls. People bought them. And now basically they almost went to, you know, zero. Correct. And then you have to buy cover. So the way it looks is $220 or something like that. So, and I have over 100 of these. So let's say I sold 115x and you multiply that, you know, 115 times 220, that's what you get. And then the lower it goes, let's say it goes now to 185. Well, my profit is what? 220 minus 185 times 115. But the lows, this call cheaper and cheaper because it's further away from the strike. And I think eventually they dropped, I think almost like 80-90% of their value. And I just bought them for peanuts.
So when you're selling calls and sell calls at like the highest.
The highest point resistance. That's what I do. Correct.
Gotcha.
I made
You
and profits away. So I'm like, man, let me put my shares would still appreciate, right? And I would just cut the calls, right? Let's say made a higher high the next day. I probably would have been like, okay, well, let me trim it or let me look to close these, right? Because there are some levels they could have visited, like 30 here. But they did not. They turned around and immediately I'm going to be back in, you know, 2027 30 calls. We buy 30 calls for 2 years out, and we are up 90% of those Intel calls, guys. And now we're in a massive bracket since July 2024. Almost a year of the bracket, so gotta play the bracket like you should, right? Sell calls here, buy calls here, sell puts here, right? You sell puts here, you can buy puts here and sell the call. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
At the top of the brackets, right? The expected activity is what? Selling, right? At the bottom of the bracket, expected activity is
Buying.
So you gotta trust yourself with that.
So going back to ES or SPX, I guess, and JPM.
Mhm.
So if their positions are profitable on these hedges, it means that their overall holdings are probably negative, but they don't care because they plan on holding this stuff for a long time.
That's probably right, but I can't make that
Right.
assumption.
Yeah.
Right? Just be a good guess.
Okay.
And you can read their report when they release earnings. I mean, I don't know how their stock is going. Okay, well, it's not doing great. Seth, are you still on the puts?
Yeah, for
Yep.
BOC. Yeah.
I think we won 33 if I remember.
Let's see here. I got 39 mark, which they got close to. And
We
but
said
I got-
39 was going to be a bounce. They came very close to that, but I think we said 30. Perfect. Yeah,
and
35.
33 in a mark.
Yeah, that was also the POC, right? So yeah, I think we have a high chance to play in this out. 35.
Yeah, they're expire September, so I mean, of course, the faster it gets there, the more money. But we got some time.
Yeah. All right. Any questions? Does it make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
All right, guys. So I'll be on tomorrow, and please size that tomorrow. If you're new to trading, size down tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a lot of fireworks, guys. It's going to be pretty volatile at one point. Your stop loss is not going to matter. It's going to get hit.
That's at any minute, right?
Anytime, you don't know, when I think it's going to be a pretty massive for rebalance too. So think about, you hear all these bad news. What do you think a lot of these clients want to be in?
Puts.
How about cash?
Cash.
Do I have exposure to the market?
Not really.
Not really. So just think about, I'm just giving you what could happen. Not saying this happens. Let's say, they sell off, the market dips, people freak out, panic happens, recession, people get more laying off. Because I would say this is it a stagflation? I would say probably, right? You'll have a pretty sticky inflation, and I don't think that tariff will help much. Way to is a quick, right? You want to create a panic in the stock market. You sell, it gets a call on the Fed, right? And they're like, "Hey, cut the rates." Then they cut the rates, and then they cut from that. The U.S. government does because our payments right now in a year are $1 trillion, right? Does that make sense? Did I lose you guys?
Does that also benefit people with loans?
Well, I mean, with the variable loans, yes. With the fixed loans, it doesn't really. If you bought a house at 7% for 30 years, well, guess what?
Still paying 7%.
You're gonna pay 7% until you refinance.
So if we add war in that equation, what happens?
Say it again.
If we add a war,
We've been at a war, man, since 2001.
Yeah, that's true, but yeah, a real war like Afghanistan and Iraq kind of war.
I still think we've been in that war. Even now, you're still spending money there. It's really about spending money, and whether you deploy services anymore doesn't matter because you got the drones. But I hear you, right? If we go on the war with Iran and some other, I think it would just throw another twist, right? How can you finance a war when your interest rates are super high?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
So most likely, everything to me leads to an immediate cut. Right. And if you don't trust me, like I just actually went yesterday or Saturday to the bank is tomorrow, yeah, Saturday, to renew one of the CDs that I have, and they offered me 4% for 10 months or 3.75 for 4 months. Anyone see a problem?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I asked him. I was like, "Did you? Are you sure? Like, are you? Like,
Are you sure?
well, yeah." I said, "Did you read
Are
those
you guys
numbers correct?"
okay?
Yeah, that sounded backwards.
That sounded backwards a little bit, right? So I was like, "Okay, well, either way, I chose the one that's less because I don't want my money tied up, you know, with them in uncertainty right now." So I did take lower rate, right? But it was just funny, right? And then go, if you're bored, take 5 banks, be like, "Hey, I'm in CD rates." I think the banks are in need of short-term liquidity right now. I think they repositioned it. I think JPM bought all the toxic assets. If you guys remember the regional banks that we had, how many people talk about regional banks now?
Not many.
Not many. Seems like a forgotten topic, right? I'm not saying that regional banks are not in trouble, but I do think one of the big boys will be in trouble if we don't cut the rates soon. Because those payments that gotta make on the bonds, probably not fun right now.
Also, commercial real estate investors, those guys are going to get hit pretty bad.
Oh, yeah. They're probably due for renewals here in a quarter. One of my friends,
they're-
actually, he's an accountant for a pretty big CRE. And I just actually, saw him tonight and I was like, "How's that going?" He's like, "Man, we've been so stressed managing it, like to actually not lose so much money because their loans are getting refinanced or repositioned at 6-7% on $100 million.
Yeah, some of these guys are giving up the assets.
Oh, yeah. I mean, works in Atlanta downtown. He used to work for Accenture. He said there's 2 buildings right next to him that are vacant, like fully vacant, big buildings like skyscrapers.
That's mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean it's insane, but people don't believe it.
That was the Accenture owned or somebody else owns it?
I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
Accenture lost a huge contract from the government for from the defense. Same is Oracle.
I'm sure government has a lot of buildings that were not being used for a long time.
The departmental stores are getting closed. There is no tenant. It's now like 6 months, 9 months. Everything is vacant.
But my opinion on this, and just opinion, is that the consumer behavior changed. How many of you guys like to go to like actually like 20 years back? I remember going to movies to the at the mall and walk around. I don't know the last time I've done that.
Yeah, and even when I have gone, I went for Christmas. I got like a few last gifts. When you go there, it's like there's no one there. There's like maybe 20 people in the mall.
Yeah, I just think that the new generation more inclined, but got the name of it.
Firm.
Affirm. But that's what I'm saying.
Amazon
They
convenience.
even
It's convenience.
Door-
It's there.
DoorDash is
I-
allowing you to make payment plans now
For
on your
food?
food. On your food. How fucked
That's
is
fucking insane.
that?
they even offer
Well,
discounts when you buy
they offer what?
discounts when you buy online.
No freaking away. Wow. Okay.
I just brought clothes for my kids. I got an extra 20% off if I just bought it online and picked up in store.
I don't
Yeah,
even get one.
same is the case of Target. Never ever buy directly from Target. Order online, pick up in store, you get the cheapest price.
But there.
Do they have that for IKEA and Costco?
I must show you guys my receipt from Costco this Saturday, whenever I went. I paid and I didn't want to look at that screen. Like I just paid. Like I was like, just take it. Yeah, we had 2 full cars at Costco, so
It's gonna be $1,000.
See the big in sign. That's the only thing.
yeah. If you're a good short gold.
Wrapped up.
Why? Is it that the market react?
Important it is.
So far, it's bearish price action. Just FYI. If they do clear right now, just think of overnight, whoever's trading, the market is net short. It's our short overnight. But there should be fun. Oh, there's news. There's JPM caller here. Watch for a long
yeah.
here, guys. 83 to 81. I know it sounds crazy, but I would watch for a long here. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Please size down tomorrow. I'm asking you to size down tomorrow. Completely size down. You'll regret it if you don't.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, guys. See you
Thank
tomorrow.
you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Night, guys.
Thank you.